how do you balance that, like taking inspiration from whether it's a previous job or something and kind of starting from nothing? Like when,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So we work really hard to create what I call a conceptual lens or a narrative for every project so that
Mhm.
we're not starting from nothing. So you've kind of hit on one of my favorite topics about design, which is this idea of storytelling. And I think, you guys were talking about how there's, in my bio, it says something about like evoking emotions and things like that on the workshop website. So for me, design is a series of decisions that are going to have to be made between a group of people. And that group of people could be really narrow, like
Mhm.
a family, or it could be really large. It could be all the consultants and the owners and the stakeholders of a commercial project, plus their design side, plus their
Mhm.
ownership group. It could be huge. But the only way you're going to get everybody on the same page is to create some sort of a lens for everyone to look through, and a conceptual lens is what I call it. And it really becomes a tool for making decisions. And I think it's the most fruitful when it's a story or it's narrative based. But it's a recipe. It could be a million different things, and designers do it in a million different ways. And I'm always curious, like when I go into a hotel or a hospitality experience, if I can kind of tell what their narrative was, if it's been successful, if it's come through the built environment. Um, and so we try to do that really early. And we do that for single family residences too. It might be less elaborate because it might be more personal to the person, to the family. But many times it's been very much like a story that we've written with them. I think of this place that we finished in Nantucket early at my time at Workshop, and she wanted it to feel like no other house on Nantucket. And so we went with this like boho was what we called it. It was this like Nantucket boho vibe. And I think that term's been really overused since then. But that allowed us to narrow in and do something funky in a
Mhm.
space that doesn't get a lot of funky interiors. But for a hotel, many times it'll be like three different muses coming together. That hotel you mentioned on Martha's Vineyard Faraway Hotel, um, we really started with James Taylor and Carly Simon as our muses there. And this, that they spent time in Edgartown, that they may have even hung out in this hotel. And so if they were going to take over this hotel, what would the interiors feel like? And that gave us freedom to move away from this sort of New England aesthetic and bring in this history of like a 60s, 70s kind of vibe. Um, and immediately allowed us to have more freedom on the interiors, be a little bit more playful, and get more eclectic. And
Mhm.
sometimes that conceptual lens, might change a little bit as we move through the project with the team, but it really becomes important to get everybody on the same page.
So on a project like Far Away, what was the entire workshop team brought on for?
So we were brought on to do some site planning strategies because we were rethinking how you experience the buildings. It's a group of I think it's 9 buildings,
Okay.
some captains' homes that had been turned into larger hotel suites, um, a couple restaurants, and a large hotel building. And so we came in and we did some master planning first. We decided that we wanted to move the pool, we wanted to blow out the lobby and really change the guest experience because
So you're
previously,
bringing initially it's like architects, engineers, all that stuff is the first step.
yeah. So
Okay.
we were hired to do master planning, architecture, and interior design on this, and we partnered with Mirka Ahern for the landscape. And then, of course, we had engineers, structural engineers, as well as MEP, and site civil people, great lawyers to help us get through the process.
Yeah.
And then the client team is very hands on. Blue Flag Group owns that project. And they actually, for all of their projects, are super involved in writing the narrative up front. So
So
that,
sorry, I
no,
didn't
go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt. So this is something that Nick and I face where, and I would correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like there's like an ideal spot, or there probably is an ideal spot, but it's not like a one size fits all spot to bring like you into this situation where it's like I feel that you have to develop the narrative some prior to having like the spatial layout and the engineering and the architecture. You have to have an idea of what you want, and then you're starting to develop that, and then writing the narrative, refining the narrative, where it's like this back and forth, and it's not like, well, let's get the entire design done and then let's figure out the
Oh,
narrative or the
yeah,
interior
no.
design package.
The narrative, hopefully, on good projects, and you can tell when it hasn't. Hopefully, it encompasses architecture and interior design, right?
Sure.
So, like that example we were just talking about, these are existing buildings in Edgartown that are beautiful, and we wanted to respect the exterior of those buildings. So that's why it was rooted in Edgartown. You know, we weren't trying to bring mid-century ideas to the exterior. The idea was, this is about a place where Carly would have hung out.
Yeah.
This is what it would have looked like when she hung out there. How would she have changed the interior? What textures and colors would she have brought into this space? What kind of collected furnishings would she have brought with her? And how can we juxtapose those against the cool Georgian architecture of Edgartown?
And then how are you balancing like that with what you do, and not having your, like, it's such a collaborative approach and there's so many people involved. Like how are you looking to alleviate doing things 2 and 3 times, where it's like add a little bit of design, put your eyes on it a little, like how are you balancing that where it's not like the design's cooked, you come in, this isn't going to work, we need to change that? Like, is it just being involved throughout the entire process?
In the best case scenario, you're involved throughout the entire
Yeah.
process. Yeah. That doesn't always happen. I mean, we're really lucky that we've had a few projects where we're the architect and the interior designer on commercial stuff. That doesn't always happen. A lot of times you're working with collaborators, which can be awesome. But we've been in that situation where the architect's gone really far with something, and then we're brought in as the interior designers, and we'll be like, hey, we're sorry, but none of the rooms are the right size. They don't function the way they need to work, or things like that. And then you kind of back up. And it's important that everybody kind of be on the same conceptual page when you're speaking about materiality, particularly in hospitality environments where people are moving in and out a lot. So resorts, coastal environments where you're really having that indoor-outdoor living, because you want some of that consistency all the way through. But there's no
like perfect situation, or like,
there you can still come up with amazing. I mean, we've all been in architecture that's very different from the outside, and then we go inside and we're surprised. And there's relevance to that too, right? There's no wrong or right in our industry. I think there's just, for me, it's about creating a story so that everyone can make decisions together and collaborate in a great atmosphere.